Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning. Welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. We are about a month out from the 77th U.S. Women's Open at Pine Needles Golf Club. The USGA has been running golf tournaments since I was a kid. Before that, and they're always special tournaments because of the requirements that the USGA has that are different from a lot of other golf events on tour, men's tour, ladies tour, amateur events. And today we are joined by Julia Pine, who is the Director of Communications, and Allison Burns, who is the Assistant Director for the U.S. Women's Open. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks
Even
for having
though
us.
this is playing in the morning, we're taping it. Pine Needles and the U.S. Women's Open is a marriage made in heaven, isn't it?
Yeah,
Sure
definitely.
is. Yeah.
Why?
It's a special place. I mean, I think we're saying it all around Moore County that it's the record time that we've ever been to a women's open. So Pine Needles is special. Mrs. Bell, the legacy she has, the Bell family that still runs Pine Needles Lodge and Golf Club. It's like going home. I go to work every morning at Pine Needles. What a cool thing to say.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. You told me before we came on that you had actually taken some lessons or had played on the
Played on
Bell.
the Peggy Kirk Bell tour where Mrs. Bell was always there when you finished your round. She would introduce herself. It was just so special, and it's such a great memory that I have. And now working at Pine Needles and looking back on that and working towards another U.S. Women's Open there, it really is special to me personally.
And Allison, you're a Moore County resident.
I am.
Okay.
I am.
Julia, you live up in near Bedminster, New
Yep,
Jersey.
USGA headquarters up in New Jersey.
How long have you been with the USGA?
Almost 5 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you've had a experience where you've been in different management positions in sports, not necessarily just golf.
Yeah, and now my role is obviously to oversee championship communications for the USGA, but I've been lucky enough that in just my almost 5 years, this will be my second championship at Pine Needles. Worked the 2019 Senior Women's Open at Pine Needles as well. So, like you said, it's a perfect marriage, the USGA and Pine Needles.
And what's the connection between the 2019 Women's Senior Open and the U.S. Open coming up this year?
Well, there's a lot of them. We had some of the players who played in past women's opens at Pine Needles play the 2019 Senior Women's Open. So it was kind of like coming home for them. And then obviously this year we've got our Senior Women's Open champion in the field, and everyone, certainly knows her name.
What is her name?
Annika Sorenstam. So she won last year in Connecticut at Brooklawn Country Club. It was her first USGA championship in 13 years. She came back and won. And it got her into this year's where she will be teeing it up for the first time in 14 years in a women's open.
Yeah.
And she won here, obviously one of her 3. So full circle moment.
If you trace women's golf and you go back to the mid-'70s, there was Nancy Lopez. And then you get into the 80s and the 90s, there was Annika Sorenstam, right? I mean, the two of them were
sure.
And today you have a field that is like a world field. It's the best golfers, the best female golfers in the world are going to be at Southern Pines starting June the 2nd.
Absolutely.
So tell me about tournament week.
Yeah.
Tickets are on sale. I know ticket sales are good, but it's not just a 3-day or 4-day event. It's a whole week.
Right. It's a 6-day event. So we are open to the public Tuesday through Sunday of championship week. We have tickets still on sale. We were talking before this that the Bell Pavilion upgraded ticket is already sold out. So
That's
we're
terrific.
going to have a crowd at Pine Needles and Southern Pines. And we're excited to see the extension into the Raleigh market, the Charlotte market. We're going to have a lot of people here, but it's not just watching golf. We have experiences all week. We have our junior activation where kids kids can come in free, 18 and under, with the ticketed adult. They can go into our junior activation tent, pick up a scorecard, do activities all day, and really engage them with the game of golf and get exposed to why we all enjoy watching. We'll also have Cisco there with a hitting bay activation. We'll have a food truck village. We're just going to have a lot of different things that people can experience that they may not have seen in 2007 when we were last here.
Julia, you're going to be in charge of communications. All the media?
Yep.
They all come through you.
Yep, big media center. We expect to have, international media, national media, regional and local. It's really the biggest event in women's golf. And like you said, it's turned into such a global sport that there's interest all over the world. Allison talked about pulling from different markets here, but we'll be on broadcast in over 110 countries worldwide. So you think about what exposure that is for not just the women's game, but for Moore County, for Pine Needles. It's just incredible.
We have in the Southern Pines, Pinehurst area, we've had changing demographics going on for 15 years. And for people who have not been to Pine Needles, even if they don't play golf, this is an event to come and see and to walk, because to see them right up front, it's a very intimate experience.
Yeah, and I think what you really see on the women's game is a lot of engagement with the players. Right. So they want kids out there. They want them following along. They're totally willing to sign autographs. We'll have an autograph and what we call a selfie zone for kids to kind of meet and greet with the players. And it's just not something you see in necessarily other sports or even on the men's side, but just the accessibility to being able to watch up close and personal and be able to kind of meet the heroes of the game.
You have you had received a record of 1,874 entries for the Open. So tell us how they qualify to get in.
Yeah, so we have qualifiers all over the country and a few internationally. We just have already had one in Korea and Japan. But really, we like to say that that's the DNA of a USGA championship, is the open qualifying process. We say it's the most democratic process in golf. But as long as you have a handicap index that meets our requirements, you can sign up and give it a go to kind of make your dreams come true and play in a U.S. Open. So they're 36-hole qualifiers. They're not easy to get through. Less than 4% of those who tee it up in a qualifier will actually get in. But the stories that come out of that are just incredible. Some years, last time we were here, it was a 12-year-old Lexi Thompson who qualified for the Women's Open. So it's the future stars of the game. It's those who are toward the end of their career. It's amateurs. It's professionals. It's just an incredible thing. Again, in other sports, you don't see that. No one can walk onto an NBA team in the middle of the playoffs. But somebody will be able, many will be able to have their dreams come true, and they'll tee it up against Annika and the best in the world.
That's right. Tell me about ProMedica. They're presenting the Open?
They are. So they're our presenting partner that we just recently announced. They are the reason our purse has increased to $10 million, and we are truly elevating the game, which is remarkable, truly. They are a healthcare system outside of Ohio, and they are phenomenal. They're a great partner. We're excited for this future with them, and they're taking this championship to new heights. And it's just more to come, I think, over the next couple years. But having that relationship start at Pine Needles here in Moore County, I think that's very special for the USGA as a whole.
The relationship between Pine Needles and the USGA is well known. But what goes into the thought process that the USGA says before they select a golf course? Because I think there's a hard close on the 19th of May, and basically they're giving the USGA the golf course. At that moment in time, it's yours.
Yeah, first and foremost, it is the golf course, right? We're the USGA, we want a phenomenal golf course, and we only go to the best in the country. But after that, it really is the club and the membership inviting us, because it does take a lot to put on a championship. Like you said, the course has to be closed for a period of time. Allison and her team have been on site at Pine Needles for 2 years now. It's not just, an easy decision for a club to want to host a U.S. Open or an event of this magnitude, and for them to invite us is something that, we take really seriously. You probably have noticed that, we have started to change some of our process in terms of where we're going with our championships. And part of that is what Allison talked about with, the U.S. Women's Open presented by ProMedica. We like to talk about the 4 Ps. Purse, which Allison mentioned, is at $10 million, but also the places that we go. And you'll see that the U.S. Women's Open is going to start going to the same place as the U.S. Open on a more frequent basis, because we truly are elevating the championship. Those are our 2 biggest events. And we know that it matters to these men and women where they win their U.S. Open. So whether it's Pebble Beach or Oakmont or Marion, you're going to start to see that more often on the women's side, which I think we all agree is just really special for the women's game.
Our area is known as the home of American golf. The USGA has to, on some level, kind of agree, only because you're going to be pitching a tent in Pinehurst pretty soon.
Yeah, I think we're really excited. I think it's, Mike Wan, when he came, he said there is a U.S. in front of the GA. So American golf is, something that's really important to us, growing the game here, but also embracing the global community. We like to say this is our national championship, but the whole world is invited to participate. And I think that speaks a lot to what you are all about here in Moore County. People from all over the world come to Pinehurst, the home of American golf, and we'll certainly be here more. We'll be breaking ground in the next few weeks here on what is, referred to as Golf House Pinehurst. We will have permanent staff structure. We will be moving our test center here. So our equipment standards team, we're going to have kind of a smaller version of the USGA Museum. We're going to have a welcome center, and we're really going to embrace, what you said, the fact that this is the home of American golf.
Will you be staying in New Jersey, or are you going to be coming down here?
Convince her to move here.
Huh?
I said convince her to move here.
I'm waiting for the accent to change just a little bit.
I wouldn't really fit in. I'll be staying in New Jersey, but we'll have a lot more staff here than we ever have before, and more frequent trips. And I think, our leadership wants us all to feel like we're at home no matter what office we're in moving forward. So that's really special for all of us.
Right. Where are you from originally?
California.
And you've traveled quite a bit in the last 10 years?
Yeah.
So you're a little bit of a vagabond?
Sure. I think, most of us that work USGA championships, one of the things that's really special as opposed to some other major championships is that we move around every year, but
right.
It makes it so exciting. A women's open in Pinehurst area or Southern Pines looks a lot different than a women's open in San Francisco. So it's almost like a new challenge every year.
Right.
And we get to kind of reinvent the wheel, take some things that worked well, try new things. So it keeps the job really interesting.
The subculture of golf, if you're in the business and either as a player or as an administrator, is completely foreign to people who live a Monday through Friday type existence. Part of it is you're nomads in a way. You do travel a lot. And your home is wherever you are that week, wherever the event is. And the USGA is getting into their very busy season right now. So you have many tournaments upcoming between now and August, September?
Yeah, we run through September. We have 15 national championships now, a new one this year. It's just kind of one after the other. But, we have dedicated teams that are really focused on each. And, when you talk about moving around a lot, Allison can certainly speak to. She's been here for 2 years, but it's not her first women's open. She spent 2 years in Charleston, and before that she lived somewhere else. So, like you said, we're all over the country, and we really get to experience just a lot of different places.
Allison, since you are a golfer and you've played here, tell people about the Pine Needles golf course. What makes it so special?
Yeah.
Not just for women, for anybody.
For anyone. I think a Donald Ross design, first of all. You can't compete with that. I love that. I used to grow up, Pine Needles was my favorite golf course. I would say that to every single person when they asked you the question. Pine Needles. It's just a wonderful layout. You go out there and you're challenged every single time. I'm very excited to see how the players play after some of Kyle's renovations that he did over the past few years with the bunkers and some of the wiregrass. It's going to be a great test. So I don't know what you think about Pine Needles, but I think it's going to be a great championship in June.
We were talking before the taping that the first time I ever set foot in the Sandhills was in July of, I hate to say it, 1979. And that next morning I got up, and the first thing I did was I had breakfast at Pine Needles and played golf there that day. That was my introduction into the area. It took me 20 years to move here after that day. But I got here, and that's it. I'm not leaving. Pine Needles is a very fair golf course. It rewards aggressive play, but the fairways are generous, but if you get too aggressive, they could be very penal. And the greens they're not number 2 severe, but they're still tricky, and it's all about placement on the greens.
For sure.
Is that
I agree with that statement.
You do.
Definitely. You need to have some strategy behind where your 8-iron is going to land on any given hole. So I'm right there with you.
And the different set of tees challenge men and women equally
Absolutely.
at Pine Needles.
Yes.
Which isn't true of a lot of golf courses that I've seen, but it's going to be a very severe test for the women. How does it rank in terms of, because all the courses you select they all meet the litmus test, but Pine Needles is considered a very tough golf course for the women.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, Shannon Roulard, she sets up the golf course on the Women's Open side. She was just running the numbers. The length that it's going to play at this Women's Open is only 27 yards different than the last time we were here. And part of that is because even though distance might be getting a little longer in the game, this work that's been done on the course, and like you said, the challenge is really around the greens.
Right.
We don't need to play with it much. Pine Needles is going to be a tough test.
Right.
And again, it's going to look very different than the last time we were here for a Women's Open. I think there's a lot less rough. There's been work to the bunkers, like Allison said. But really, it's going to be the short game that I think differentiates someone.
Our guests are Julia Pine. She's a director of communications, and Allison Burns, the assistant director of the U.S. Women's Open. We're talking all about the 77th U.S. Women's Open coming to Pine Needles on June the 2nd, but it's going to be a week full of golf activity. And we want to talk about what it means for women's sports. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our second set of All Things Moore County. Speaking with Julia Pine, the Director of Communications for the USGA, and Allison Burns, who is the Assistant Director for the U.S. Women's Open. Saying you're an Assistant Director doesn't mean that you have just so much work. You have a ton to do. Both of you do. I mean, it's like 24/7. What people don't realize is if we had spoken back in November or December, you would have been full throttle involved in this process. This is not something that just takes 2 or 3 months. This is a 12-month. Look at her smile. She knows.
She does. It's really a 3-year process. So we start every championship 3 years out.
Right.
We go to a site. We evaluate where our parking lot's going to be.
Right.
What is our corporate hospitality approach going to be? What are our ticket options look like? So it's a full approach for a year and a half to 2 years where we're planning and we're creating that best framework, and now we're executing. So mentioning December, January this past year, we were already checking things off the list that we had planned for a few years, but it's definitely a process. There's a team of 10 of us already on site at Pine Needles working every day specifically on this championship.
One of the features of the Pine Needles Golf Club, the golf course, is that it's sort of built into the landscape with the homes. It all blends as if it's always been there together. It's not been a manufactured course around a development.
Right.
So how will the logistics work to get people in and out, because it is completely a neighborhood course?
For sure. They do fit perfectly, all the homes around the course, like you said, but we do have a great process in place for this year where everyone will park off-site away from the neighborhood roads. So we just announced our parking lot. Sandhills Community College is where all of our ticket buyers will park, and we'll run shuttles from there to our championship main admission gate, where a will call will be, where they'll get tickets scanned and they'll enter the championship. So we make it easy for everyone. You can plug into GPS, Sandhills Community College, and get to the parking lot, and we avoid traffic around the Pine Needles area.
So you're not driving to the golf course.
Exactly. You're not driving to the course.
So it's the Women's U.S. Open at Sandhills Community College to start before you go to Pine.
Exactly. It's a full experience.
It makes sense, actually.
Yes.
Tell me about tickets. A lot of people buy tickets for events like this at the last minute, and you're probably prepared for that.
Yes, we are. We understand that. I myself am one of those types of people, but we have great accessibility to our tickets. So they start at $25. They run to about $140 for a weekly package, but we have broken our tickets out into good any day options. So you can purchase a good any day Tuesday or Wednesday and come for a practice round, and you can do the same for Thursday or Friday and Saturday or Sunday. So even if you're the type of person that likes to wait till the last minute, we've provided flexibility with our ticket options when you do purchase.
And you mentioned the Bell Pavilion. Tell me about the Bell Pavilion. What is that going to entail for people?
Yeah, that's an upgraded ticket option. It has a great view of 18 Green, so definitely where all the action will be. Unfortunately, it is already sold out. People really leapt at that, which we're really excited about. But like Allison said, the tickets that are available are still available on uswomensopen.com. You can find all the information there.
All right. And your website is very intuitive. There's tons of information, not just about the U.S. Women's Open, but about all your events.
Yes.
And you have an app?
We do. We have an app. We also have a ticketing app. So when you do purchase your tickets, you'll download your tickets into the wallet on your app that they ask you when you get your confirmation number. So it's all right there. It's all mobile tickets. It makes it easy. You can pull up on your phone everything you need to know. Live leaderboard, live scoring will be on the app. We will have charging stations throughout the golf course to help keep your phone at 100%. And then we'll also have video boards all throughout the course. So you will know what's happening all around you at all times.
When did the USGA start putting charging stations on?
A couple years ago. I've been through the process.
A little different than when Annika won back in 1996.
I would say so, right? So people they're going to be lineups at those charging stations.
Yeah, for sure.
People will be taking pictures and texting and doing all this good stuff. What about, we have a large military population in Moore County, and this is the first time, I think, the Women's Open is going to be here we have so many younger people in town.
You do. And we just announced our military policy. So all active and retired military will be free of admission to the championship plus a guest. So they just have to come to the admission gate, get on the shuttle at Sandhills, and present their ID at our ticket office or will call, and they'll get let in for free.
That's great.
Yeah.
We have organizations here in Moore County like First Tee of the Sandhills. They use golf as a hook to teach the values for children, for kids, discipline, honesty, sportsmanship. And I'm sure that they're going to be these young groups. Young children can really get a lot from seeing a golf tournament, the discipline, because golf is a sport where you do not react. You initiate the action.
Yes.
The ball doesn't move until you move it. It's not different.
It's very different, and you learn so much. I think it's the one sport where you do learn all the values you need in life, and I think that
humility.
Yes, that embodies the First Tee perfectly. It embodies the USGA and what's important about the game of golf. So that's why we want to make sure the junior experiences are on site, that we have the accessibility to all kids in the area to get to the championship, to see what the game's all about. Even if they aren't part of a First Tee program or LPGA girls golf program, sign up, come enjoy a round, see Annika play, see Lexi, and get excited about it. And that's what the championship is also used for.
Yeah. There's so many well-known names that are going to be, I'm sure the top 10 will all be here. You'll have your field rounded out, I guess, once the qualifiers are done.
Yeah, so we have a few exemption categories. You know, the top 75 in the Rolex rankings, which is the world rankings, are automatically exempt. So we spend a lot of time talking about our qualifiers, but the best players in the world don't have to worry about qualifying.
Right.
If you win the Women's Open, you get in for the next 10 years. So that's obviously a big luxury for some. We will be letting a few people into the field all the way up until the championship, because if you win on the LPGA Tour, you're into the Women's Open. So
the week before
would be the last, chance for someone to get in. But yeah, great field of golfers. We had someone win last year who's only 19 years old. So when we talk about these girls, a lot of them have the opportunity to potentially play in a Women's Open. Yuka Sasso, who was our winner last year, 2 years earlier, she was playing in the U.S. Girls Junior. So when you think about that sort of transition, it's really a lifelong journey for these men, women, girls, and boys to grow up through USGA championships, but we are seeing it, get younger and younger on the women's side.
For people who live in Moore County who may not venture out to the course, they can watch the tournament on TV as well? Yeah,
the U.S. Women's Open presented by ProMedica has more broadcast hours than any women's tournament in the world. So we will be on NBC, we will be on USA Network, and since we got back together, as our rights holder deal with NBC, we have a lot of shoulder programming too on Golf Channel. So earlier in the week, we'll be live from the U.S. Women's Open on Golf Channel early before the championship rounds start. And as soon as the action ends every day, we'll be live from the Women's Open on Golf Channel that evening. So you won't be able to get enough of us.
Are you responsible for all the networks from all over the world that are coming in to set up their shop for their broadcast back home?
So luckily we have a broadcast team that handles a lot of those logistics. What the communications team is really responsible for is getting player access. So as soon as they come off the golf course, this channel wants them, this radio station wants them, and it really turns into almost like a car wash. So we help the players sort of navigate through that. But it really is the biggest championship in the world. The players know that. It's great exposure for them, and especially on the women's side, they're interested in that opportunity to, show the world that women can play golf.
What is the USGA? What do they want for the women's tour, for women in general in sports? You see the WNBA, you've got, and the LPGA they started like a rocket ship in the 70s into the 80s. Then it kind of flattened out a little bit, but it's been on the uprise, and I'm not giving you the right timeline. But I sense that women's golf is, for many reasons, is starting to skyrocket again.
Yeah, I think women's sports in general is really starting to. For us, it's always kind of been in our DNA. A lot of people don't realize that when we first had a championship 127 years ago, it was the U.S. Open, the U.S. Amateur, and the U.S. Women's Amateur. So that was one of our 3 originals. So we've been running the Women's Amateur as long as we've been running the U.S. Open. We inherited the U.S. Women's Open 77 years ago. But it's just always been a part of what we do, golf for all, men, women, across the board. So I think you're exactly right. Obviously right now our CEO used to be the former commissioner of the LPGA. So I think it's pretty clear that, women's golf means a lot to us. But really, golf for everyone means a lot to us. We want to make sure those doors are opened. And it's sort of a perfect segue into the fact that we launched a new championship this year, the U.S. Adaptive Open, to make sure that those with disabilities have a stage to play. So we spent a lot of time talking about the U.S. Women's Open, especially in a year where we have a new presenting spot partner and we have a $10 million purse. But we really want to make sure that everyone has the chance to play in a national championship on the greatest stage in the game, whether you're a man, a woman, whether you have a disability, whether you're a young boy or girl.
Tell me about the Adaptive Open.
Yeah, so it's a championship for those with disabilities. There's really 3 impairment categories. You can be physically disabled, mentally disabled, or have a sensory visual impairment. It's going to be right here in the Sandhills at Pinehurst number 6 in July. The reception from the golf industry has been overwhelming. I think we knew we had something special, but when we announced, just the outpouring of kind of love and support and has been incredible. We will announce the full field on May 18th, but it's going to be really, really special.
That's terrific. Let's come back in the third set, and we're going to wrap up about the 77th Open at Pine Needles coming up June the 2nd. Julia Pine and Allison Burns are my guests. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final set. Our conversation is all about the 77th Women's U.S. Open, hosted by and run by the USGA at Pine Needles, June 2nd through June the 5th. There's so much that goes into a golf tournament, other than just turning on the TV one Saturday afternoon and catching a few holes and following the leaders. There are a lot of, the field is going to be large. They're going to be the top women golfers in the world. So many people have told me in my life of playing golf that a man, can learn more from watching. You know what I'm going to say, right?
Yep.
Watching a woman swing the club than they can from watching a man swing. Why is that?
It's just
I agree with it, by the way.
It's the accuracy. I think when you come out and you watch the best players in the world in a couple weeks, they're all hitting it in the middle of the fairway. You sometimes will go out to a PGA Tour event, the U.S. Open, and they're hitting it in the next fairway some days, but it's so accurate. They're very meticulous, methodical, and I think that's important for your average golfer to watch and pay attention to when they're also looking at their swings. So.
We were talking in between sets, in watching some of the YouTube videos of some of the players that will be at Pine Needles. I am struck by how super focused they are on the ball, on their balance, and that their environment around them, their surroundings, does not factor in like most amateurs.
Right.
If you hear a puddle, a duck, you go, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I'm not going to get over the water. But they're so focused on the mechanics, and it almost looks repetitive, robotic, and laser focused. And people will see that if they go to the practice rounds, how they practice, how disciplined they are, and the pace of their swing, how smooth. The transition from the top down, not let's grip it and rip it, and to get that extra 10 yards, let's sway and throw our hips into it a little bit more. Doesn't work that way.
No.
So I think that's why people say, men can really benefit from just watching the balance in the swings, and they are magnificent. You agree?
Yeah, and I think we hear it a lot when men play alongside the top LPGA players in the world during pro-ams,
Right.
that they are just up close and personal. So you know what Allison said about accuracy and also just the distances. I mean, I know a lot of the recreational players, men especially, want to play it from the back tees all the time, but their hitting distances are probably pretty similar to the women on the LPGA tour.
Right.
So they're really going to approach a course like Pine Needles more similarly to Lexi Thompson than they are Dustin Johnson. So if they even look at their course management and things like that, they could certainly learn a thing or two.
Yeah. There's a different atmosphere this year. We're 2 years with COVID or the pandemic not behind us, but this is going to be the first full throttle event that you've had in a couple of years.
For sure. And I look at it as an exciting thing. I mean,
Right.
we're building the same size merchandise tent. We're expecting to have 2 admission gates and just have all of the resources, all the facilities up like a full-blown U.S. Women's Open, which is what we are going to host in a couple of weeks. We touched on this earlier, but our ticket sales are above our 5-year average. So we're going to have a lot of people here, where the past couple years we were running the championship for the players. We were making sure that we were hosting the best U.S. Women's Open for them, and now we have the added fans, and that's going to elevate the experience for the players as well, and for us running it.
You expect to draw from people not just in North Carolina, but obviously all over the country.
Yeah, it's an international event. Obviously, for the most part, the majority of our fans will come from North Carolina, South Carolina, and some neighboring, states. But people come from all over the world. They tune in from all over the world.
There'll be a strong Asian group represented.
Yeah. Our broadcast over in Asia, even what we see on our website and in our app, there's really worldwide interest in the women's game.
You don't have to go so far outside of North Carolina, though, for volunteers, do you?
You sure don't. This is
Or Moore County, for
the
that matter.
perfect volunteer community. We hit our recruitment numbers of 1,500 volunteers in the first month. And the way I break that down is they're working a combination of 40,000 hours for the week, over 15 different committees. The time that each of these volunteers are dedicating to the championship is how we're running the championship. We couldn't do it without them, and having that initial support. That's one of the first things we go out to market talking about. Having that full in a short amount of time really just set us up for success for the rest of the year. But like you said, we have 85% of our volunteers from Moore County, so they're a short drive to the championship.
And the thing about Moore County is there's a very strong volunteer base for lots of different organizations.
Yes.
What's so impressive, though, is their spirit.
Mm-hmm.
They want to do the right thing. They want to give into the power that be and do a great job, and everybody is helping. There's a cooperation.
There sure is. We have committee chairs that lead these 15 committees, and above that, vice chairs and volunteer chairmen. It takes a group effort, and all of them work the various events in this community, whether it's the U.S. Kids, the North and South, different events that go on. That's where we pull from the knowledge from them. They're teaching us how to best do this.
Can you explain when the tournament is over in a way that people would understand how tired you are, how completely physically, mentally drained you are? that you need how many days to just no, seriously, to
I
recoup?
sleep for a full day.
No.
I do. I get
Just one day?
well, you've been going and going and going, and then you finally have a day where you're not waking up at 2:30 or 3 in the morning, and you just sleep. It hits you. But I don't know. We keep going to the next championship at the
we'll
same
both
time.
be in Boston 2 weeks later for the men's U.S. Open. But I think we also take a lot of pride in what we do, and when we crown a champion, it really truly changes their life.
Right.
I spent the Monday after last year's Women's Open with our champion Yuka Sasso. There were 40 media outlets from her home country of Philippines who wanted to speak with her, and I think she was in shock a little bit. About 48 hours later, there was a billboard of her on the side of a building that was 40 levels tall. I mean, those are the things that when we're done, we can kind of sit back and watch it all happen, and just feel a lot of pride in what we did.
How long was she a pro before she won the Open last year?
Maybe a year. She didn't even have LPGA status.
And how
That
old
came
was
with
she,
her
19?
win. 19. Yeah, she tied Inbee Park for the youngest to ever win the Women's Open.
Crazy.
And changed her life. She got $1 million and a major championship.
So I see that you, in your ad slicks, you use life-changing events, and it is. It's also a life-changing event for the residents of Moore County, and to shed a light on what a great community this is. The world is going to get to see the Southern Pines, Pinehurst area, and it's just, I can't wait to see it on TV as well. The visuals are going to be just, people are going to say, I need to be there.
Yes, exactly. And the residents, like you said, they're going to be proud to be from here and living here. And that's one of the things we love to do, to showcase the community we're in. I mean, we've been living here for 2 to 3 years, all of us. We want to make sure everyone else knows how great it is to be here. So we'll see that through the broadcast and through just different things throughout the week.
Give me the dates of the full week again.
The full week
When it
is
start, the
is
events
May
start.
30th through June 5th, but our
Okay.
championship days are June 2nd through June 5th.
And May 31st, June the 1st, there will be practice rounds to attend. There will be not events so much, but there will always be something going on at the golf
Always
course.
something going on. We have a really good relationship with the CVB here, and they are putting on a few events throughout the week, as well as the town of Southern Pines. First Friday lands on our Friday of
Oh, boy.
championship week.
Oh my gosh.
So we're excited for that. The CVB is also hosting a barbecue at the Fair Barn on Monday afternoon, which is also Memorial Day, where everyone's invited.
Oh my gosh.
Come out there. We'll have the trophy. You'll be able to get a ticket if you haven't gotten yours already. There's a couple other events sprinkled throughout, and we're also trying to do our trophy tour all week at different restaurants and just be out and about in town.
With all the people we attract from New England, from the Mid-Atlantic, the Midwest, we always tell people that people are drawn to this community because it reminds them of the towns they grew up in as kids. Wait till they get a load of pine needles.
Exactly.
That week. Your website, again, is?
uswomensopen.com.
Okay. People who want to get tickets, there are tickets available. They're going fast. You expect big crowds.
Expect big crowds, but they're still on sale.
But it's user-friendly. It's an
Yes.
intuitive site, and people are going to drive to the Sandhills Community College to get to Pine Needles.
Yes.
They're not driving to Pine Needles.
They are not. They are getting on a shuttle, short ride, 5 minutes.
What about all the neighbors who live in Knollwood in the area? Do they get passes so they can come and go to their homes?
There are some resident gates where they can walk up and enter the championship easily.
No, I mean people who live
Oh, yeah.
on some of the side streets because they all intertwine.
Yes.
They can get in and out of
Oh, yes, they can get to their driveway.
Okay, I thought you were
They
going to
are
say
covered.
they have to go
No,
to Sandhills
no.
Community College too.
They will have normal operation.
I appreciate you guys have a very busy week, and I appreciate you coming in and talking. And I hope this was interesting banter because we want to make it a little bit different.
Yes.
But what you guys do is great. The USGA is a great organization. Golf is one of the lifebloods of Moore County, and it's going to be a great celebration. So
Thanks
Thank
for all your
you.
support.
thank you both.
Thanks.
Enjoy it. This is All Things Moore County. Have a great week.